Welcome to Asian American Life. I'm your host, Ernabel Demillo. In this episode, we'll take a look at Asian Americans who are running away from the competition, from presidential candidate Andrew Yang to marathon runner Jim Diego's 50-50 run. That's 50 marathons in 50 states. We'll have a look at their stories, but first, here's a look at what's ahead.
Decision 2020, Susan Jhun meets the Asian American presidential candidates. Rayner Ramirez reports on the Harvard admission lawsuit. Minnie Roh discovers a hotline that helps innocent people get out of jail. Changing Tide, Kyung Yoon sits down with the visionary behind the Tide Film Festival. And Agony of the Feet, I catch up with a record-breaking marathoner. This and more on Asian American Life.
Every year, more than 52,000 runners cross the New York City Marathon finish line right here in Central Park, including Jim Diego. He's a marathoner who's in it for the long run.
So the only way for me to catch up to Jim Diego is to put on my running shoes. We managed to get him to slow down and chat with us 12 hours before he was set to leave for another marathon.
So what is your favorite thing about running the marathons, traveling all over the world?
That for sure is one of them, but also the community. It's like a second family.
At last count, Diego has run 119 full marathons and 98 half marathons, and counting. He's probably running one right now. If you're wondering, that's more than 4,600 miles. That's like running from New York to Moscow, Russia. He has run a marathon in all 50 states and 36 countries, from the mountains to the prairies and the pyramids. And he only started running in 2014.
I have never been, growing up, the real athlete. I was the performer.
Diego, who is Filipino-American, grew up in Kansas and now calls Queens home. In between races, he works for a real estate development nonprofit in Jamaica, Queens, a day job that helps pay for all his travel costs. Most weekends, he's on an airplane. Running marathons was one way for Diego to travel the world, albeit he's running through most of his destinations.
I'm just going to ask you a bunch of questions and answer as fast as you can. Sure. Okay, ready?
I hope so.
Okay. Your first marathon?
Chicago.
Your last marathon?
San Francisco.
Your next marathon?
Chilliwack in British Columbia.
Ooh. Your most scenic marathon?
Big Sur. Well, actually, it's a tie. Big Sur and one I did a few weeks ago in Montana.
Oh, that must have been pretty. Your favorite marathon?
New York.
New York. Oh, yeah. New York. How many times have you run New York?
3. It'll be the 4th this year.
Your hardest marathon?
Petra, Jordan. 97 degrees at the finish line and high elevation, dry heat. It was tough. Almost 7 hours.
And yes, there are plenty of others who have run marathons in all 50 states. But what makes Diego stand out is before the start of each race, you'll usually find him holding a mic.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed?
Diego has performed the national anthem in all 50 states, hitting the high notes.
For the land of the free.
Before starting his 26.2-mile journey. Also in his repertoire, Oh Canada.
Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
His goal is to run a marathon in all of the Canadian provinces in 2020 because why not? He chronicles his races in a blog called Victory Headstand Runner because he does a headstand at the finish line. And he's been featured in Runner's World and on local news stations.
A way to see the country in a very different way than a lot of people do.
And let's not forget the medals.
So do you ever just wake up and say to yourself, oh my gosh, I have to run this marathon?
Well, it's more like waking up and realizing what city am I in again? Or what country am I in again? So after the first 15 seconds of shock of, okay, I'm not home, it's more just like, all right, I know why I'm here. I'm here to run a race.
And speaking of races, it's time to go. Diego's got another plane to catch, So we'll see him at the finish line. I'm Ernabel Demillo for Asian American Life.
Asian Americans have historically been absent from politics, at one point legally unable to run for office. That's all changed now as we see in this election cycle a record number of Asian Americans running for President of the United States.
I stand before you today to announce my candidacy for President of the United States.
Hello, I'm Andrew Yang, and I'm running for president as a Democrat in 2020.
Today, I announce my candidacy for President of the United States of America.
It's a historic time for Asian Americans in politics.
To see not one, not two, but 3 Asian Americans running, literally, it's unprecedented. Never happened before.
Kamala Harris, Andrew Yang, and Tulsi Gabbard all seek the Democratic nomination for President of the United States in the 2020 elections.
If you've heard anything about me and my campaign, you've heard that someone is running for president who wants to give every American $1,000 a month.
44-year-old Taiwanese-American tech entrepreneur Andrew Yang has garnered support for his presidential campaign proposing a universal basic income.
Well, the Freedom Dividend is a policy where every American adult between 18 and 64 receives $1,000 a month, free and clear to do whatever they want with it. And while that seems dramatic or extreme, it's becoming increasingly necessary as our economy changes. We're automating away many millions of American jobs.
Yang says the Freedom Dividend would be paid for by a tax on companies that benefit most from automation and would provide the financial support Americans need to transition to new areas of work. Also looking to provide financial support specifically to the middle class in the form of a tax credit called LIFT is 55-year-old California Senator Kamala Harris.
What I have proposed would be for families that make less than $100,000 a year. They will receive a tax credit of up to $6,000 that they can collect at up to $500 a month.
The former California Attorney General and San Francisco District Attorney is the first South Asian American senator. Harris is the daughter of a Jamaican father and Indian mother. Among Harris's other platform promises, a rent relief act for those who spend more than 30% of their income on rent, and affordable health care.
Health care is a fundamental right. We will deliver that right with Medicare for all.
Another proponent of health care for all is 38-year-old Hawaii Congresswoman and Iraq War veteran Tulsi Gabbard. A major in the Army National Guard, Gabbard also seeks to revamp the criminal justice system and calls for foreign policy reform.
We have been wasting far too long both American lives, my brothers and sisters in uniform, as well as trillions of taxpayer dollars on these senseless regime change wars. As president, I'm going to end these regime change wars.
Gabbard is both the first American Samoan and first Hindu member of Congress, a number of firsts that represent a shift for Asian Americans in politics. Frank Wu, distinguished professor of law at UC Hastings and author of the book Yellow: Race in America Beyond Black and White, says historically Asian Americans have been absent from civic life.
The main reason Asian Americans haven't been able to participate in politics is because they couldn't. They couldn't naturalize until 1952. And then even after that, in many places, they would have faced that heckler's jeer. Go back to where you came from. And also what social scientists nowadays call implicit bias. You know, the images rattling around in our heads, even if we don't say it out loud or they would embarrass us. This idea, good at math and science, no people skills, couldn't be a leader, right? That's the image of Asian Americans. There have been Asian American candidates. Patsy Mink, a Japanese American woman who served in the United States House, ran for president in 1972. People didn't take her seriously, and she ran a campaign to make a point, but she did run.
It's important to me to show in this campaign that we can also inspire, lead, solve problems, have visions that transcend our individual situations or even our communities, that could expand to the whole country.
As momentum builds for Asian American political candidates, the Asian American electorate is also becoming a force. As the fastest growing ethnic group in the U.S., Asian Americans have historically had low levels of voter turnout, but as U.S. Census statistics show, that's changing. Asian American voter turnout rose 13.3% from 26.9% in 2014 to 40.2% in 2018. And according to a Tufts University study, the voting rate among Asian American students has nearly tripled from 9% to 26%, with most students generally leaning liberal. Regardless of how Asian American candidates fare in the 2020 election, there's no doubt that the Asian American vote will be pivotal, as Asian Americans make up crucial voting blocs in swing states.
Asian Americans have gone from being at the margins to being the margin of victory.
For Asian American Life, I'm Susan Jhun.
A federal district court judge just found that Harvard's admissions policies does not discriminate against Asian American applicants. But the fight to undermine affirmative action may not be over. In a 130-page brief, U.S. District Court Judge Allison Burroughs ruled that Harvard does not discriminate against Asian Americans.
What the judge said is that Harvard takes into account race, it considers our ethnicities, but it's a much broader and comprehensive program, and there was not a finding that Harvard categorically discriminates against Asian Americans. They went through extensive evidence, extensive files, extensive expert testimony that found that race was one consideration, but not the predominant and overarching consideration.
Attorney Glenn Magpantay favors the ruling. Magpantay, whose last name means to make equal in Filipino, says he's a proud beneficiary of affirmative action.
This case assures that at Harvard and at other universities and colleges across the country can continue to consider a wide diversity of factors in their admissions process.
But the plaintiffs, Students for Fair Admissions, alleged in a 2014 lawsuit that Harvard restricted admissions to Asian Americans. Jeannie Park, president of the Harvard Asian American Alumni Alliance, was at the 3-week trial in 2018.
Being in the courtroom and seeing much of the trial made even clearer to me what SFFA's mission here is. It is to end race-conscious admissions, and that is the remedy that they have asked for in their lawsuit. They're claiming that Harvard discriminates against Asian Americans, but what they are really looking for here is an end to race-conscious admission.
What was notable, she says, was who was missing.
One of the interesting things about this trial is that these plaintiffs are nowhere to be seen. They did not testify. He did not testify. They were not named. Their application files were not put forward. So it is almost impossible to even say whether they have a valid claim of discrimination.
NAACP legal defense attorney Kara McClellan delivered the closing remarks at the trial. She says anonymous plaintiffs are unusual.
One has to wonder what would compel somebody not to be willing to come forward to speak about their experience if they feel so strongly to bring a lawsuit.
Asian American students make up about 22% of Harvard's freshman class, and the majority of Harvard's student body are now people of color. Several testified at the trial.
They talked about the importance of having people of all different kinds of backgrounds in their classes. Some of them did not have high scores and grades, but clearly the admissions office saw something in that file and that they thought would make them wonderful students and future leaders. I think there's a historical tactic to try to pit minorities against each other to the benefit of the majority and those who have held privilege. And the research has shown that if you eliminate race-conscious admissions, the primary beneficiary are those who've always been privileged in admissions and not the Asian American students and students of color.
Students for Fair Admissions will appeal this decision to the First Court of Appeals and, if necessary, to the U.S. Supreme Court. For Asian American Life, I'm Rayner Ramirez.
I'm Minnie Roh. While we hope we never find ourselves on the wrong side of the law, if you or a loved one happens to get arrested, there is a number you can call for immediate legal help. The hotline was created by an Asian American product designer to combat what she calls the cracks in the criminal justice system, especially when it comes to minorities.
It's everyone's worst nightmare. You're arrested, handcuffed, and hauled off to jail.
My son got arrested about 2 weeks ago, and I didn't know that he had gotten arrested until the cops showed up at my door that evening.
Rodney, who didn't want to give his last name, says the police gave him little information about where his son was detained. But then he found a card tucked away in his wallet and realized help was just a phone call away.
Hello, this is Good Call. If you or a loved one were recently arrested and are in police custody right now, please press 2.
And I called right away, and the lady took my name, my name and my son's name and information of where he got arrested.
Anyone who calls 1-833-GOOD-CALL today can be immediately connected to a lawyer, and then the lawyer can then, invoke your rights, call your loved ones for you.
Stephanie Yim is the co-creator of Good Call, which partners with public defense attorneys in all 5 boroughs of New York City.
At the moment in which you need help, you can just call, because that is actually the only line of help that you can get right when you're arrested.
It's a win-win. Those who need legal help are paired up immediately with a lawyer. The lawyer reaches the client sooner, allowing them more time to spend on their case.
The things that you get arrested for, which are often trivial or for racial profiling and things like that, they don't then snowball into lifelong effects, such as losing your job or your kids or having a criminal record for the rest of your life.
Social justice wasn't always on Yim's radar. As a child of Chinese immigrants, she grew up in Queens, New York, had dreams of becoming a doctor, and attended Carnegie Mellon University. Like many other Asian Americans, Yim believed that becoming a doctor or lawyer was the measure of success. But then she heard about a neighborhood man named Ray and realized that her true calling was right there on the streets where she grew up.
He was arrested outside his house simply because he was there at the wrong time, at the wrong place, for a robbery that was happening nearby. Because the cop said that he fit the description, because he looked like that person. He was just sitting outside his home. And what ended up happening is he had no one to call, and he ended up in Rikers Island for 2 weeks. When I heard that, I was like, there must be something that could be done.
Yim met her co-founders through a fellowship at Robin Hood Foundation called Blue Ridge Labs, which uses technology to build solutions for low-income New Yorkers. Together, they set out to tackle these cracks in the criminal justice system.
1 in 3 Black males in America have been arrested before. And there is obviously a lot of work that needs to be done, a lot of systemic changes. And while we know that Good Call is not going to change all those things, it is definitely something that's very necessary.
Asian Americans are certainly not exempt from arrest either. And in fact, for many, an arrest could also have serious consequences in their immigration status.
We're all affected by the criminal justice system. And it's really time to, I think, relearn that narrative about who gets affected by what and how we can all take part in changing it.
Good Call spreads the word through grassroots efforts, partnering with neighborhood organizations, speaking at events, and handing out flyers in the community, helping people like Rodney during their critical time of need.
Good Call is funded through grants and individual donations with the long-term goal of receiving city funding. Since it launched in October of 2016, Good Call has connected thousands of people to the legal help they need. Yim hopes that one day this model can be replicated across the country. I'm Minnie Roh for Asian American Life. I'm Kyung Yoon. Among the many film festivals in New York and around the country, the Tide Film Festival stands out for its focus and celebration of filmmakers of color. I sat down with the Asian American visionary behind the festival.
Two undocumented Turkish brothers at risk of being exposed. An adopted black Mennonite torn between her faith and her desire to explore the outside world. A Korean immigrant mother who can't speak English and seeks help from strangers with her son's homework. These were some of the stories by diverse filmmakers that were showcased at the inaugural Tide Film Festival in 2018.
So TIDE, if I can say, it stands for Truth, Intent, Disrupt, and Title. And we say that we believe that filmmakers of color deserve to tell their truths with intent to disrupt the mainstream narrative and to feel entitled in their right to do so.
Julie Young is the founder of the Tide Film Festival, which is being held for the second year in a row in Brooklyn. She says her passion to create a festival that celebrates the voices, visibility, and power of storytellers of color is deeply rooted in her personal experiences.
I'm an adoptee. I was brought up in a white suburb in an Italian-Irish-American family, and I feel that my experiences as an adoptee kind of inform everything that I do today. And so with regard to Tide, I grew up never seeing any images of myself on TV, in the books that I read, in movies. And I think that the media has such a powerful impact on us, and the images that we see and the images that we don't see are just very powerful.
Now, as the mother of two biracial children, Young has called the festival a, quote, love letter to her children.
I have Blasian mixed children myself, and it took me a long time to become this very proud Asian American woman. And it has been kind of my mission in life to help my children feel good about themselves as people of color in this world.
Young says for too long, the stories about people of color, if told at all, have been narrated through the lens of others, which invariably leads to flat and shallow stereotypes.
It would just not be authentic. It would sort of be over the top and just, kind of promote stereotypes for black, brown, yellow, red bodies, And so we want to control our own narratives, and we want to help, Tide wants to help support the filmmakers of color to tell their own authentic stories.
Just be able to tell these human stories, and we're able to connect with, and we're recognizing the humanity in, people of color. And to be able to share this, I think, was really important.
Tide Festival participants Peter Lee and Julian Kim were recognized last year by the supermodel and founder of Every Mother Counts, Christy Turlington, with an award for their short film, Homework. The award gave them an opportunity to create this Mother's Day film to raise awareness about Every Mother Counts' mission of promoting maternal health around the world.
The United States is the only industrialized country with a rising maternal mortality rate.
It's not just, here's a check, but it's actually work opportunity. And for all of us trying to sort of make it in the industry, it's so much more meaningful to be able to create a project with a budget and to be able to constantly prove ourselves.
Since last year's Tide Film Festival, the two filmmakers have released their first feature-length film called Happy Cleaners, a story rooted in their own experiences of growing up as children of immigrants in Flushing, Queens, which has generated excitement and an outpouring of support from the Asian American community.
I think a lot of comments we've been getting was like, man, that's my life on screen. Like, man, I lived through that, and I think the authenticity of it, I think, was really empowering to people and audiences in the community, really. And without saying much, just the fact that, hey, it's a story about a Korean American immigrant family in Flushing. They're like, yo, where can I watch this movie? Like, they want to see it.
We are, Korean American males, children of immigrants, millennials. And that's a lens that we'll always carry with us through the rest of our lives. And so we'll always be seeing the world with that lens. And I think that's a diverse perspective that we're able to offer.
An additional mission of the Tide Film Festival is to build bridges of understanding amongst communities.
When it comes down to it, Tide is about compassion. It's about you watching my story and learning something about me and hopefully feeling some empathy so that you then see me more as a human being and as a person as opposed to just whatever ideas you might have had about me beforehand. That's the point of storytelling, I think, is to kind of help connect human beings through compassion.
When I was watching films at Tide Fest, like I was just so blown away by all the different stories told there. Like it was very like colorful. There was like very different stories from very different genres, first of all, and like the kind of backgrounds and, you know, people who want to tell the stories were very different. When I stood there and was watching all this, it's like, man, this is like what America should be.
And organizers of the Tide Film Festival have plans to keep growing it as a platform to shine a light on filmmakers who are challenging the mainstream narrative of films. I'm Kyung Yoon for Asian American Life.
That's our show for now. If you want to learn more about our stories, be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Asian American Life. I'm Ernabel Demillo. We'll see you next time.